Hey friend, I want to talk to the part of you that's been shrinking just to survive. You've been playing small for so long, it started to feel normal. Comfortable, even, but lately. Something's different, isn't it? Something's shifting, the space you used to fit in, it's getting tighter. Not because it's bad or wrong, but because you're outgrowing it, the energy rising inside of you is louder now. Stronger, it's not content with the quiet anymore. It's not satisfied with just fitting in, you're starting to feel like a fire burning in a small room, and that's not ego, it's expansion. It's growth, the truth. You're outgrowing the version of yourself that learned how to be invisible to stay safe. You're shedding identities that helped you survive, but can't take you where you're going, and the people around you, they feel it too, they might not say it out loud, but they sense the shift. The ones who built their comfort around your smallness, they're starting to notice you pulling away, not because you said anything, but because energy speaks louder than words ever could. This message, it's for those of you who've been doing deep spiritual work in silence. You've been healing, shifting, evolving behind the scenes, and now you're reaching the point where the seams are starting to split open, the walls can't hold you anymore, the ceilings are cracking, and the truth you carry, it doesn't fit inside small conversations and shallow spaces anymore. You can't unknow what you now know, you can't go back to old environments where your soul has already moved on, you can't play small in places where your energy has become too loud, too alive, too real. It probably started subtly, didn't it? A little discomfort in rooms that used to feel like home, a quiet whisper telling you, you're not supposed to be here anymore. At first, you brushed it off, thought maybe you were being too sensitive, too impatient, but now it's everywhere. You can't ignore it anymore, the conversations feel empty, the laughter feels forced, even the things that used to bring you joy, they feel a little hollow now, and you wonder, am I broken? No, you're not broken, you're evolving, you're not just healing anymore, you're breaking out, and when that happens, everything that once felt fine suddenly starts to feel like chains. You're not crazy, you're not ungrateful. You're just finally stepping into the version of yourself you were always meant to be, and here's the part people don't talk about enough, others can sense your shift long before you ever say a word, your energy walks into the room before your body does. Your spirit moves first, and the people around you feel that absence, even when you're still physically there. The ones who once relied on your softness now bump into your boundaries, the ones who loved you when you were convenient, they're starting to squirm in your presence now that you're standing in your power. You've become too expensive for their comfort zones, too expansive for their expectations, and they feel it. But here's the thing, you don't have to announce anything, you don't need to make a big speech, your silence speaks volumes now, your posture has changed, your energy no longer begs for permission, you're not chasing approval, you're not explaining yourself. You're just becoming undeniable, and that alone is enough to make the whole room shift. Some people will celebrate you. Some will distance themselves, and some will try to drag you back into roles you've already outgrown. But hear me, don't get pulled back in by guilt, don't shrink to make other people comfortable, don't confuse familiarity with alignment. When God starts stretching your spirit, everything that once held you starts to feel like it's holding you back, even if it once felt like love, even if it once was love, because real love doesn't keep you small, real alignment never asks you to dim. So if you've been feeling that discomfort lately, if your old life suddenly feels like it doesn't fit anymore, if you've been feeling the urge to move forward but you don't know where to go, that's not failure, that's a spiritual growth spurt, and growth, it's messy, it's disruptive, it rarely shows up in a neat little package. You're not falling apart, you're being reshaped, and everything that's falling away, it served a version of you that simply doesn't exist anymore, and yeah, they feel you outgrowing them. Not because you're making a scene, but because you stopped shrinking to fit their needs, and let me tell you, that is a holy thing, that is sacred. You're not just leaving behind people or situations, you're leaving behind the version of yourself who equated survival with success, the version of you who was praised for being so patient, so low maintenance, so easy to be around, but inside, you were carrying the weight of everyone else's comfort, you were performing peace instead of living it. But here's the truth. You never signed a lifetime contract with that version of you. It was temporary, it was survival, it was the cocoon. Not the butterfly. You didn't betray anyone by evolving, You simply stopped betraying yourself, and now, everything that was built around your containment is trembling, not because you're trying to destroy anything, but because truth always rearranges the room. Some people will say you've changed. They'll say, you used to be so easy to be around, you're different now, you're becoming selfish. But let's be honest, they didn't really love the real you, they loved the version of you who made everything easy for them. What they actually mean is, you're becoming harder to control, harder to predict. You stopped bending yourself into shapes that made them comfortable. You used to be quiet, not because you didn't have thoughts or feelings, but because you were doing the math in your head, trying to figure out, is it worth it to speak up? Is it worth it to show up as my full self? Or should I just shrink again? But now you know the answer. You've spent years giving grace to people who only loved you when you didn't challenge them, people who only showed up when you were easy, agreeable, convenient, people who felt safe around you, not because they were safe, but because you never asked for anything real. But now, you're asking for depth, you're asking for presence, you're reflecting back truth, and truth makes people uncomfortable. You've become a mirror. And mirrors don't just show people who you are, they show them who they've refused to become, so they flinch, they pull back, they label you as too much, when really, they were just never ready to meet you at your full size. But don't let their discomfort make you shrink again. Don't silence yourself just because your glow exposes their shadows. Don't go back to small, safe rooms just because you know how the furniture's arranged. You're not here to be familiar. You're here to be free. That tension you feel right now, that discontent, it's not a sign you've messed up, it's confirmation. Confirmation that you've outgrown the version of your life that can no longer hold your destiny. Even your body knows it. You leave conversations more drained than energized. You walk into spaces that used to feel like home, and your chest gets tight. You wake up in a life that once fit you perfectly, and you feel like a stranger in it. You're not imagining it, that you're not being dramatic. You're living in the shadow of a story that already ended. You just haven't closed the book yet, so here's your permission, close it. Let the chapter be what it was, sacred, beautiful, even necessary, but don't keep rereading a page just because you spent years writing it. You don't owe anyone an explanation for where you're going next. You don't need a map, you don't need a speech, you just need to listen, to your body, to your spirit, to the quiet voice inside that's been saying, this isn't it anymore, because your calling, it has moved, and your soul is already halfway into the next chapter. That's why things feel off. That's why the air feels thinner. That's why you feel unseen, even in rooms full of people. God is disrupting your comfort so you don't confuse it with alignment. And the wildest part is, when you finally do start to leave the old life behind, you won't need to slam the door, you won't need to shout it from the rooftops. You'll just stop dimming, and that will be loud enough. Some people only felt powerful because you stayed unsure, because you doubted yourself, because you played small so they could feel big. They were never actually in control, they just relied on the fact that you hadn't realized yours yet. But now you have. Now you know who you are. Now you walk into rooms with presence, not apology. Now your silence carries weight. Your peace is no longer something you feel the need to explain or defend. You're not just outgrowing people, you're evolving beyond entire dynamics, old patterns, unspoken contracts, unrealistic roles you never agreed to, but somehow kept playing. You're done, and here's the truth, the divine truth. This was always the plan. You were never meant to stay where you started. You weren't built to be tolerated. You were born to take up space, in your love, in your light, in your purpose. You were meant to be seen. You don't owe anyone an explanation for where you're going next. You don't need a map. You don't need a speech. You just need to listen, to your body, to your spirit, to the quiet voice inside that's been saying, this isn't it anymore, because your calling, it has moved, and your soul is already halfway into the next chapter. That's why things feel off. That's why the air feels thinner. That's why you feel unseen, even in rooms full of people. God is disrupting your comfort so you don't confuse it with alignment. And the wildest part is, when you finally do start to leave the old life behind, you won't need to slam the door. You won't need to shout it from the rooftops. You'll just stop dimming, and that will be loud enough. Some people only felt powerful because you stayed unsure, because you doubted yourself, because you played small so they could feel big. They were never actually in control. They just relied on the fact that you hadn't realized yours yet. But now you have. Now you know who you are, now you walk into rooms with presence. Not apology, now your silence carries weight, your peace is no longer something you feel the need to explain or defend, you're not just outgrowing people, you're evolving beyond entire dynamics, old patterns, unspoken contracts, unrealistic roles you never agreed to, but somehow kept playing. You're done, and here's the truth, the divine truth, this was always the plan, you were never meant to stay where you started. You weren't built to be tolerated, you were born to take up space. In your love, in your light, in your purpose, you were meant to be seen, and now you're stepping into that, fully. Boldly. Finally, whether the people around you are ready or not. Yes, it might feel lonely at first, yes, it might feel like you're walking through a hallway with no door in sight, but don't panic in the pause, that silence, that space you feel, it's not absence, it's preparation, it's God building the next room, the one that fits, the one your soul has been craving. You didn't miss your chance, you're not behind, you're not too late. You're just too aligned now to keep shrinking into places that no longer reflect your truth, and here's the beautiful part. The people who are meant to meet you in this new space, they won't ask you to shrink, they won't ask you to explain your glow, they'll recognize it, because they carry the same one, so walk forward, not to prove anything, not to be seen or praised, but because you're finally becoming everything you weren't allowed to be before, everything they told you was too much, your fire, your clarity, your boldness, your boundaries, all of it was never too much. It was exactly right, just too big for the wrong rooms, so let them feel it, let the room shift, let the walls tremble, you're not leaving to hurt anyone, you're leaving to honor your spirit, and that is the holiest kind of growth there is.